comments from positive comments from residents saying, wow, I think police officers are walking the trails. How much of that? Are we still able to do that, given the heavy workload and all the other things you're trying to do?
Definitely, but the thing you have to understand is the heavy workload. Now, we have a product that we are providing to the watches, and we have a product that we're providing to you guys. Now, in order to have this product work, I cannot not have guys being shipped out to different sections. If we're assisting the watch, we're not going to own, the report to Crown Counsel on that file. We're there to catch a bad guy, and all of a sudden, guys, you guys do the paperwork. We're out there to help out. I don't want that team to be broken off, and that's why I'm on shift as long as I can, so that if there is demands from the watches, if there's demands from other sections, I'm there. I can explain. Listen, I don't want to step away from that mandate. That mandate is very important. I need to keep those guys in so that we can work as a unit and keep that product available.
That's good to hear. You mentioned speed checks. I gather that's not a traffic check. Is a speed check something else, or is that a
street checks?
Street check or street checks.
Street checks is, it's 1 o'clock in the morning, or 11 o'clock at night, and you see a guy, and I'm not going to be stereotypical, but we are police officers. We've been on the road for many years. He's got a backpack, he's got the reverse hat, he's got a bike, and he's a back alley. You know what? It's a good street check.
Sounds like even I can make that call.
So I'll be doing that later tonight. So I wrote my bike.
Could be Mayor Stewart.
I got to put my hat on forward.
Put him in jail.
And I'm just curious, and maybe the chief, and I know we're in an open meeting, but I saw this open yesterday. I thought I saw 2 officers on quads. Do we have quads? Is that something new? They were passed. I was going down Coast Meridian. They were stopped, and they crossed Coast Meridian. I looked at that. Wow! And so I didn't know. They looked like they were RCMP officer, although they had the full bike helmets on.
And we have 2, and yes, they were out yesterday, and they were covering parks.
Town Center Park.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So
is that part of this group?
Yes.
Or is that
No, it's not part of this group, but that's also something that I started in May as well. So when resources are available, we are doing it generally on the weekends. So the foot beats, the bike patrol, and the ATVs. We're going all out, plus the cars, obviously. It's all different angles to it. The one thing, and I should mention about the U-Crew team here, one of the things when we put it out to the membership to see who was interested, it was like there was no secret. You had to like to walk.
Yeah.
So 90% of their time will be on foot. That's part of it. So they all know what they got into, and Nigel can say that they all like to walk, and they're all fit, and they don't mind doing it, and they'll be out in all kinds of weather. So part of their mandate as well is, as we know, we have with the SkyTrain coming in here, that is also theirs. They're going to own that, and they're also going to be networking with Transit Police in the very near future, and they'll be coming up with a bit of a game plan to deal with that as well. So.
Okay. And as I think Councillor Morrison was saying, you alluded to deployment. A lot of that is going to be based on stats and comms. I know that there's quite an active group up in Burke Mountain now. There's been an increase in crime because there's more people living up there, and so for the people up there, the best way to see enforcement is just to. What would you suggest?
Call the police. Let us know what's going on. We need to know. So if we don't know, we can't react to what we actually don't know. So.
Okay.
Thank you. And Sergeant Fairbatchin mentioned a particular drinking establishment that I won't mention again. But the last time it was in the news was when Mayor Rob Ford was inviting there, I recall. But anyway, I guess it's got a bit of a reputation. Mayor Stewart, speaking of mayors who have reputations.
I'm not sure what that means. Thank you very much. I'm sure that there are lots of unsavory characters at that place, not just Mayor Ford. But you mentioned you had only one bike-trained guy.
Yes, right now, yeah. The thing is that, when you're on the watch, sometimes, to be available for a bike course, all of a sudden you have to have, different things in order to be able to, know court dates. Sometimes things don't line up the way it is, unless, now that I have control over the team, hey, I have 5 guys, when's the next bike course? I can send all 5 in there, or 4, and get it going. But when they were on the watch, I didn't have any control. I just tried to pick the best bodies, the best members that I could get to be able to do the job, who are interested in doing this kind of duty. The rest, will fall in, the way we want it, but for the time being, this is what I had. Perfect world, yes.
The bike patrols are different things. This isn't teaching removing training wheels. This is there's a training program that
There's
goes.
a separate 1 week course that they have to pass in order to use the bicycle. And, it's quite rigorous, actually. So,
Okay.
yeah.
I wonder if you could describe a typical hotspot, and not necessarily by name, but unless you want to, and what criteria would make it a hotspot, someplace that you'd target.
You know, there's areas. Can I mention an area maybe?
Absolutely.
Like around
We're
Gayton,
open. So we're-
around Gatonsbury.
As long as it's nowhere near any of our houses.
Blue Mountain, Austin, you know, around the Coquitlam Center, Westwood, like our side to Johnson. You know, those are areas, and that sometimes it switches a little bit. It'll go from one block to the next, whatever, depending on. But there's, you know, the Pine Tree, you know, the Town Center Park. You know, we've had some break-ins. You know, those are areas, or the undergrounds in certain areas. And you know, and Nigel Corporal Blake, you know, he's gone on foot. He's been on patrol for the last, you know, 2 weeks out there. So he knows the areas that, you know, and the experience that he's got. Maybe Nigel, you know, like the specific areas that you've patrolled with your team.
Well, I mean, largely they're areas that have experienced escalated levels of reported crime in the preceding 2 weeks. Is that reported?
That's what it is. Yes.
Be that theft from auto, commercial break and enter, residential break and enters, but that's essentially what a hotspot is. So and that can be affected by any number of crime generators. I mean, a problem house with a number of individual, you know, frequent flyers who do a particular type of crime. If we're able to convince that person that it's not a good idea to live in this area or live in this area and do crime in this area because there's a heightened level of policing and it's hard for them to blend in, they may just move on. So that's kind of our focus.
And then, you know, you may have a problem house that's right there in the hotspot. You know, so we want to just target, you know, make sure, listen, it's not a good place to do business here. You know, so, and then we're also talking to people. You know, we've had a number of, you know, interviews, you know, where we bring these guys back to the office and, hey, listen, you know, what's going on in your area? You know, hey, you know, yeah, so-and-so is living there or whatever. So we're also gathering information that we're sharing with the rest of the units in the detachment. You know, so it's like it's a three-dimensional unit. You know, where we're not only there, you know, enforcing, but we're visible. We're gathering information. We're identifying, you know, the areas where these bad guys are residing, and we're dealing with it. No, if it involves bylaws, so be it. If it involves the liquor licensing agent, you know, to come with us on patrol in certain areas, whether it's karaoke bar or whatever. If there's a graffiti, you know, in a certain area within the hotspot, we're going to have an operational plan to deal with that as well. You know, so everything is open. You know, and there's more than one way to skin a cat. You know, so and I leave it open to the guys to come up with those strategies.
Before we go to Councillor Reid, who doesn't like the expression "skinning cats,"
Okay.
Actually, the next words I wrote was problem houses. Now, the problem house that's in a residential neighborhood that isn't a problem neighborhood, that's not a target of U-Crew. That's a target of other forms of policing.
It could be.
Parking a vacant car in there or something.
It could be. It could be. The house wouldn't necessarily be a target, but possibly some of the people that were living there could gain a little more attention. We could go and speak with them and possibly situate ourselves to be in a position to conduct heightened enforcement in those areas.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, the curfew checks are another thing too. Is that we have it, you know, we have bad guys who reside in those zones, and they're not supposed to be, you know, out on the road after 10 p.m. So we go out there and we make sure we do the curfew checks, you know, and you know, we have a list, you know, at the beginning of our shift, you know, and we'll go do that as well. You know, so the curfew checks, the street checks, you know, and knowing where these bad guys live, you know, so that we can determine, you know, who else is coming into the area. Because there's bad guys that are coming from Chilliwack, coming from Langley, coming from everywhere, you know, and if they're taking residence here in Coquitlam, we want to know about it.
Well, thank you. Councillor Reid.
Thank you. Well, it sounds like we need to get some passports printed up that said you're welcome to leave Coquitlam. I think this is very exciting for me because for all the years I've been here, it's been hard because we keep changing officers. As you know, that's that's the way the RCMP works. It's great to get someone who's on the ground and knows the community, because I think that's a big part of the battle. I'm going to come down to reporting crime, because on Friday I went to get groceries, and I'm just getting in my car, and this girl comes, stops her car, and just starts shaking. She was just a young girl. She said, oh my God, do you know where the police station is? And I said, what's the matter? You know, looking to see. She had turned, and some guy had got out of her car and was going to punch her in the face. It was road rage, or hit her, bash her. She thought her windshield was going to go. So naturally I phoned. I couldn't get through. So I phoned again, and I couldn't get through. I phoned City Hall, and they tried to put me through to you, which I didn't think I'd get there, but nothing. So I kept saying to her, you're supposed to phone 911, 911, 911. Now, this is interesting, because this is not the first time I've heard this. A lot of very respectful people do not want to phone 911 for an incident like that, because they don't feel it's important enough, that 911 should be for really important things. So that's an interesting observation, but I've heard it a lot from people. No, it's not really an emergency, and it isn't, but they're very upset, and who knows what could happen, and that's just one incident. So with the success of this program, I have to ask you, what are we doing about the phones? Are we going to, I see Kathy back there, are we going to have more people on to answer your regular line? Is there any way, because I can see the more you're out there, the more calls you're going to start getting. And how are we going to be able to handle them? And you don't have to tell me, because I guess you have to figure it out for yourselves based on the success of this program. But I do think we've got to have another way, and because we're public today, we have to have another way of just telling people, oh, if you keep trying to call us and you can't get through, and you say phone 911, well, a lot of people don't want to do that. So just if you can keep that in mind, because I can see this becoming so successful that you're going to have people start reporting things, which is good. Mm-hmm. And that's it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Do you have any comment on that, Superintendent Maloney?
No, I actually wasn't aware that that was actually going on, to be honest with you. But I'll certainly look into it, and we'll discuss it further as our management team.
Well, as a realtor, when I go out to different houses, somebody will say something, oh, we'll phone the RC. Oh, no. You can never get through, and I don't want to bother them with something this little. Or something that's already happened, like this young girl. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But there's stuff that should be reported.
Well,
so where do they go and how do they do it? So just leaving it with you.
No, sir. What we've been doing, my team has been doing, when we've gone out in the community, we all have business cards and we've all got cell phones.
Perfect.
So what we've been telling people in the business community more specifically, but not just in the business community exclusively, is if you have an emergent situation that's going on at the moment, by all means call 911. If it's something that has happened and it's a crime, you need to call the non-emergency line. If it's something that's just giving you concern in the community, here's my business card, that goes to my cell phone, you can call me. But that doesn't preclude you from calling non-emergency or emergency if you have an incident, if you want a police officer to show up right away.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that helps at all.
I think that's great for the businesses, and being around for a few years here, like 20-something, the businesses sort of always knew somebody to phone. But I think it's just for the general public. I really think we're going to have to take a look at how we're going to handle that better. If we can have like another line when they phone in, if that's another line that it clicks over to or whatever. Anyhow, I'm it.
Thank you very much. I'm on the list, and Councillor Zarrillo is the final one so far. I had a question. It was about, I guess, around 11 months ago, we had an incident in Ottawa that led to the curtailing of the responsibilities of our auxiliary members. And as a result, we had to pull back some initiatives that our auxiliaries were doing here in Coquitlam. And I'm wondering if you can speak to how we've managed that problem in conjunction with this. Is this more than made up for the lack of auxiliaries being able to go out in crime reduction, or is there another crime reduction or patrols that happen separately? You know what I'm talking about here, the edict from Ottawa we got regarding the auxiliaries not being able to go out on their own without essentially direct supervision from a regular officer.
I can answer that, actually. The auxiliaries, that whole thing that happened, that's kind of eased off a bit now, too. It's going to come back to the commanders myself to actually risk it out as I feel the need to. So
That's good news.
So,
Okay.
yeah, it's not as hard and fast as it was.
Okay.
And the auxiliaries are never meant to actually replace what these folks are doing here.
I know that.
So they would have never been doing what they're doing anyway. But the auxiliaries are out in the community, and I have let them go out now, and I think I'm sending some emails to you. I think some of the things they've been doing on their own, have police cars that are designated for them, and they'll go out on their own and do things out there with the community.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you. Councillor Zarilla.
Well, thank you very much for coming. I just want to make a couple of comments. The first one is that definitely this initiative is becoming much more visible in the community, and I'm hearing about it quite a bit, so I just want to thank you for that. And it's something to build on, so that's wonderful. Increasing knowledge of our streets and the community is amazing, and I just wanted to talk about the containment potentially that happened last week. There was a similar, if it was the one you were talking about, Schoolhouse and around Hammond last week, there was also a containment. And a couple of the neighbors told me to say that they were very happy to be able to engage with the members there, and that the members saw this traffic, the traffic issues that they have there. So it's just another level of knowledge on the street too when you're there and you see things, and the community's thankful for it. Mostly I just wanted to talk about the Cops for Cancer, just give it a little bit of airtime here. I wanted to thank you so much for allowing for some of our team members to be out there. I think it was 4 this time. 2 could ride and 2 more on the team, and I just want to say thank you so much for that, and it was a pleasure to see them in Coquitlam last week.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Zarilla. Thank you very much for coming in, gentlemen. We appreciate the report. Some very good news to see our tax dollars at work in a very meaningful way. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk.
Item 2 is the minutes of the Council and Committee meeting held on Tuesday, September 8th.
Move.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Zarilla, seconded by Councillor Hodge. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 3 is the minutes of the Council and Committee meeting held on Monday, September 14th, 2015. The recommendation is that the committee approve the minutes.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Hodge, seconded by Councillor Marsden. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 4 is our first delegation. I would like to invite Mr. Dan Freeman from TransLink to come forward for a presentation on TransLink's 2016 Transit Network Service Review.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. I'm also here with Margaret Whitkins, Director of System Planning and Consultation.
Margaret Wickham?
Whitkins.
Wiggins, yeah.
Wiggins. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I use the here? Maybe I'll use closer. Okay, great. Yeah. Great, thank you, and thank
You're
you.
in the driver's seat.
I am in the driver's seat. Great. Better buckle up. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mayor, and Council for having us here today. As Dan mentioned, I'm Margaret Whitkins, and I'm the new Director of System Planning and Consultation at TransLink, joined by Dan, who leads our network management group at TransLink, which is responsible for near-term changes to our transit network. And we're here today to present some information and hear some feedback on an upcoming public consultation that we have to consult on some potential changes to the transit network that would roll out in 2016 and after. So this isn't a decision point that we're where we are right now. We are at the kind of starting point of a public consultation phase, and so we're here today to let you know about that public consultation and hear your input. I'm going to go through a very brief presentation and then hopefully have a bit of time for discussion as well. So why are we consulting on the transit network? TransLink has an ongoing process of reviewing and refining our transit network. It's good business practice to ensure that the network is evolving and responding to customer needs. Our current context is one where we currently, as many know, do not have additional funding for expansion to our transit network, so we are operating within existing funding for the transit network. However, we also know, and people in this room would know more than many others, that the Evergreen extension will change how customers access the transit network, and so we need to ensure that we're also responding and being proactive about shaping the transit network in anticipation of the Evergreen line. And further, customer demand continues to grow. There are many routes with crowding, and so as a part of our ongoing business, we need to ensure that we're adapting the network to best meet the customer needs within our existing resources. So as a result, we're proposing a number of near-term changes, as I said, and we will be consulting on those this fall. So what will these changes do? Perhaps most importantly, they will integrate bus service to better connect with the Evergreen extension when that comes online. We have some changes that will also help to decrease travel time on busy routes, extend service to areas with high customer demand where service is not already provided. There are some instances in the region where there are road and infrastructure changes underway, and there are opportunities to adapt the transit network to better suit those those infrastructure changes. And then we also have some changes proposed that will make the system more efficient. So in total, there are over 85 near-term potential changes, and we'll be consulting on those this fall, particularly because, as we know, it's an existing system. When you make changes, you affect people, and it's important for us to be out in the community having a conversation about the trade-offs.
There we are.
There we are. So in terms of what this means for the Northeast sector and Coquitlam, obviously the Evergreen extension will bring online 6 new SkyTrain stations, providing fast, frequent, and reliable transit throughout the region. There will be a number of corridors with frequent all-day transit service, as well as opportunities to provide faster and more direct service, both to the SkyTrain as well as to major destinations within this area. We are aware that Burke Mountain is a high priority for network expansion, and that is certainly something that will be top of mind for expansion as resources allow, although it is not part of this current program of expansion. Since this is not an expansion program, we're working within our existing resources. In terms of where the proposals that we're consulting on came from, in many cases they came from existing plans, so both the Mayor's Council plan as well as area transit plan. So there's obviously the Northeast sector area transit plan is relatively recent, and so we drew heavily from those existing plans to ensure that we were moving in that direction, even though in many cases resources preclude fully implementing it at this point. We can put the groundwork in place to move towards that vision. We also have a program of ongoing monitoring of the transit network, and so as needs emerge, particularly in areas of the region where the area transit plan may not be as recent, we have mechanisms on an annual basis to ensure that we're understanding how customer travel is changing. So in terms of the process that we are embarking on for public consultation, it's part of a broader timeline for engaging both the public as well as municipal staff in the planning efforts. So the Mayor's plan as well as the area transit plan is one that have been out in the public for some time. Earlier this year, we worked to identify potential proposals, consulting with municipal staff on those proposals, and use that to really arrive at the 85 odd proposals that we're consulting on right now. The public input period will be from October 13th to November 6th, and then based on that public input, we'll arrive at a final set of recommendations that will be rolled out in 2016 and beyond. In terms of the specifics of the public consultation program, as I've said, the period is between October 13th and November 6th. There will be a robust website at translink.ca/TNC where members of the public can take a survey and provide fairly detailed and targeted input on the proposals that are being put forward. We also have a public community relations coordinator who is available through email as well as by phone to speak directly to individuals who want to provide input. And then we'll have extensive outreach efforts that are a mix of both traditional as well as more digital consultation approaches. And so an example of the more innovative approaches, we're working with our communications team to find ways to provide very targeted information to those who are interested in participating. So right now, customers can, if they want to know when the next bus is coming, many of you may know that you can text the bus stop number to 33333 and it'll tell you when the next several buses are coming. The consultation will allow us to communicate to those who are texting that there are potential changes coming to their bus route. So if they've texted about, whether it's the 160 or the 169, it can alert people texting that number, hey, you might be interested to know that there are changes coming to this bus route, and that will direct them to the contact information shown here. And then, of course, we're working with our municipal staff counterparts to ensure that we're getting information out through councils and welcome other input on how we can best share the word about this ongoing process. So I'll stop there, and Dan and I would be happy to discuss or take questions. It's perhaps worth noting as well that we'll also be attending the Tri-Cities Transportation Task Force later this month for more detailed discussion. I think this presentation has been distributed and it has some reference slide with some of the more specifics about the proposals themselves. So we can discuss those at any point today or over the course of the next while.
So thank you. On that, before we get to Councillors Hodge and Marsden on the list, I want to clarify something. On this particular slide here, it talks about feedback and outreach to municipal councils. Now, we haven't seen the detailed plan yet, so it would be difficult for us to give detailed feedback on something we haven't seen yet. Do you plan to come back here, or is it staff's intention to bring your plan to us at another committee meeting? So you can answer the first part of that question first.
Yes, and this is one of the first outreach efforts that we're doing with council, and unfortunately it's sequenced just after our board meeting, which finished up at the end of last week. So I apologize that we weren't able to get the information out to this group sooner. There is more detailed information in the reference slides that we could walk through today, or I would take and we will be at the Tri-Cities Task Force later this month, and then I would also welcome input from this table or from staff on how we can best ensure you have a chance to provide input.
Well, speaking personally, that I would prefer some opportunity to spend some time to look at that before. We're trying to do it on the fly here. I think it'll be somewhat inadequate, especially for me. Does the staff, who would speak on behalf of staff for this one? What was their intention here?
Want to chat in?
Why'd you have a massive picture of brains?
To date, through the chair, to date, council's been involved in the actual northeast area transit plan, because that's work that's happened over the last 3 years. With respect to the 2016 implementation, we did identify in previous council reports sort of near-term priorities, but staff's happy to bring back some more information to council for more thorough review after today, if it's desired by council.
Okay, it would be my preference, but we can go around here and whatever else wants. And okay, thank you. And before we go, I have on Skype our transit expert who wants to take part in this today. Councillor Asman's not. I'm just kidding. He's a bus driver, as you might know, and so he's always got about 150 questions. So he's not with us today, but I thought, in spirit, I'm sure. Councillor Hodge.
Yes, it's unfortunate because I'm going to try and go through this, but Councillor Asmussen can rattle off route numbers off the top of his head. I guess the question that I would have is that what are we consulting about? Certainly without us having seen the plan, but as you said, there's no expansion of service into areas. So we're really talking, I guess, about tweaking. Maybe, this service will be a little faster, but there's, more frequent. But we're not talking really expansion. And when we talk, certainly up on Burke Mountain, that's what they're led to believe. There was an article in the paper, I guess maybe about a month ago, that showed routes and everything. And I guess now what you're saying is that's all just proposed, particularly the number 9 on Burke Mountain. Which you've done your homework because you've made a point of saying that's not in this plan. There's no new bus service on Burke Mountain. So maybe you can just elaborate what exactly we're going to be consulting on.
Yes, so this area of the region is somewhat unique in that the Evergreen extension will be coming online, and so there has more than in other areas of the region. There are some fairly significant changes consistent with the Northeast Sector Area Transit Plan in terms of how routes will be structured within this area. And so as an important part of our ongoing community engagement, ensuring that that we've provided the public an opportunity to weigh in and provide feedback on how that Northeast Sector Area Transit Plan is going from a plan towards implementation would be much of the conversation. In any time we're adjusting the transit network in a material way, there are people who are impacted in either a positive or a negative way, and so even if it's small, if it seems small, it's important to have a window to hear input and make refinements as the case may.
But we're not going to show, at this point, you're not going to show that number 9 bus route at this, because that's not what we're consulting about, because that's not in the implementation plan. So this is going to be mostly, do you want to have service every 15 minutes or as opposed to half hour? So it's going to be that type of thing, and I'm presuming that that's going to mean a loss of service somewhere else. So this is just about sort of shifting resources around, and that's what the consultation is going to be. I got that right?
Yeah, Dan, did you want to elaborate?
No real net gain in any of this.
I think you're absolutely right that in our region right now, we're in a context where there's no additional resources for transit. So we are looking to serve more customers with the resources that we have. And we think on balance, across the region, particularly in the Northeast sector, there's going to be big gains for customers. But you're right that there is no new money coming. And so that means that there's some people who would have an impact, and so that's certainly what we're talking about.
The routes are going to get less frequent. You're going to move resources to where they're heavily used.
That's right.
I'm presuming the routes going into the SkyTrain stations, we're seeing more frequent service, and some of our other routes will see a decrease. Is that all going to be contained within the Northeast, or is there resources coming into the Northeast from some others, or are those losses also going to occur here in the Northeast?
There's no shifting resources proposed out of the Northeast or within coming into the Northeast, but certainly with the Evergreen extension coming online, there is going to be significant improvement in access and service within this.
So any gain we get in this part of the city is going to be at the expense of another part of the city. Just in black and white terms, it's not.
We don't measure at the municipal boundary, and our customers, of course,
but
travel
Northeast,
across.
the Northeast, because you're all using the SkyTrain. But you're not going to cut a bus route in White Rock to increase bus service in near a SkyTrain station here. The cuts will come from somewhere else within the Northeast to increase service within the Northeast.
That's generally the case.
Okay, good. So the 85 potential changes are all within the Northeast then?
No, only approximately a third of them are within the Northeast. The rest are a number of tweaks kind of across the region, from implementation of other changes on the North Shore, following on the heels of the North Shore Area Transit Plan, and some other improvements to
those changes are going to be dealt with in those regions. There's again no benefit coming
Mr. Freeman, can you define the Northeast? Because in Coquitlam we think of the Northeast as way up there.
I apologize. It's the Northeast sector is the Tri-Cities and More Belcarra.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Okay.
Apologies.
Essentially, just Tri-Cities. Okay. The other one that we've seen a little bit of a comment on, again, the number 9 not happening in Burke Mountain, that's going to be a real problem, and others are going to speak on that. But not having increased service on Burke Mountain is going to be a real issue, given that we're trying to encourage people to not buy cars, and with a SkyTrain station that close to them and not having any way to get to it, short of walking down in the rain to the corner of Coast and David to climb onto the 188, which is actually already packed. And I note that that's probably one of the ones that's being looked at for increased service, or do we know that at that point? It's currently every half hour. Is that going to go to 15-minute service?
That's certainly something that we're looking at. The 188 is indeed a route that's been quite successful in the short period that's been in place. Through this similar program was instituted just 2 years ago, short of 2 years ago. And it's been successful, as you point out, in increasing ridership. And so we continue to monitor it, and as resources allow and through these processes, we look at addressing those places where customers do have.
It was late getting there. We could have used it sooner. I'm glad we have it. This council, mayor and council, really pushed to get that service in place because we believe that if you put it in, it would be used. I believe the same on the 9. That if it were in today, it would be being used and we would get more people onto the system. So I think you've got it. That's the message I'm sending back. I know that's not what you're here to talk about today, but that's what I want to talk about, and I appreciate.
Shall I rule you out of order, Councillor Hodge? No.
But give me a minute and then roll me out of order. Let me go, because I'm speaking for. But anyway, I think we need to look at that. The other one that has come up in the public that I've heard about is on the map it shows a bus coming down Thermal. Is that a new route, or is that a moving of a route that's already in existence? So does that qualify the same as the number 9, that it's just a long-term proposal but isn't going to happen
that
in
map
6
again
months?
up there?
Yes, in fact, there's a specific proposal, perhaps I can go forward, that shows in more detail, that's in the reference slide. So these are the proposals that we've highlighted that are specific to the Coquitlam, and highlighting also sort of 3 more proposals that are more regional in nature. Of course, the Millennium Line Evergreen Extension and improvements to 2 ferry services, Express of the Ferry, which are used by customers from across the region who travel to the ferry terminals. So particular, I guess I'll sort of go through quickly and I can return if there's additional question. Highlighting on this map here, there's a number of changes in calling Southwest Coquitlam, but I apologize if I have to share if the geographic name isn't appropriate. There's a new route you can see on the left is the current bus network, and on the right is the proposed network in this part of the region. Routes that are in color are ones that are supposed to be changed. In gray, there's no change proposed. And so the one in green is the 153 that currently terminates at Poirier Center. That's proposed to continue north to Inlet Center and along Moody to Moody Center. So that would travel along Thermal. So that would be new proposed service.
Is that a routing change, or is that considered a new route like the number 9 on Burke Mountain?
I'm not sure semantically I would consider that an extension of a route, but certainly it's something that is part of this proposed package. It's something that we would be in a position to implement if there's contingent.
So that will be in the community consultation.
Yes, absolutely.
So I know that there's been some discussion in the neighborhood, so that there will be an opportunity for that discussion to take place during this consultation.
Yes, certainly. And just to further, that's consistent with the Northeast Sector Area Transit Plan that identified these proposals as kind of the evergreen integration priorities and the service to Burke Mountain and a number of other areas as kind of the next step of a very high priority, but following after
That's
these.
good. I'd still like to see the 188A, maybe. So if we don't call it the number 9, just say it's an extension of an existing service. Anyway, I'll let others.
So I'm going to interject here again that your knowledge of some of the specific routes is probably greater than the rest of ours. None of us has had time to look at this. We haven't heard our staff's input on this. I really do believe that before I can speak intelligently on this, and I hope I speak for some other people on council, that we need to have staff's analysis of this final report now, after all the input we've had in the Northeast Area Plan, everything, to finally see this. I think we're going to need staff's input on that, then we can have some time to study it to actually formally get back to you. So if there's I think we're all there, right? Does anybody feel that we can just give them input right now?
No.
No, I don't think so. So let's, as we go forward in the questions here, let's keep that in mind, that this will be coming back to us for more detailed analysis, I would think.
And my point is, we're sort of confused, as in you can give me a definite answer if that's a new route or an existing route. I think when you go out to the public consultation, don't put something on there that is not prepared to be done. So don't show the number 9 if the number 9 is a plan for 4 years down the road or the funding's not in place. So I think it's really, differentiate between long-term plan and vision and what we're actually discussing that could actually happen in a year.
Thank you. Councillor Marsden, then Mayor Stewart, then Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, and I'll agree with the chair's comments with regards to our ability to give detail. You know, I'm not going to try and cite transit numbers to you, not my area of expertise. My challenge or questions relate to the public input piece, and the outreach specifically is going to be done. So, if you can go back to that slide, if you would, in terms of areas that you're going to look. I think to the users of the current transit services, I mean, we're trying to do two things here. We're trying to address the people that are currently utilizing it and get information out to those that would be willing to utilize it. And to Councillor Hodges' points, the folks in Burke Mountain, I think there's quite a number that would be willing to utilize it more if we enhance the services. I recognize the Evergreen is spectacular and it's going to free up the resources, the redundant resources, essentially, that we can reposition to where they're most needed. I think that's wonderful. That being the case from an input perspective, I don't know, I'd like a little bit more meat on the bone with regards to what that looks like. Or do you see yourself setting up a kiosk at some of our transit hubs, at the West Coast Express as an example, and say, how did you get here? What improvements do you need? Here's the plan. Give us some feedback, and do that for a couple of days where you can get the information out, and then they can perhaps drop it off the next day and their 2 bits worth. And, you know, how was their trip to get to that hub? Or do you see doing some things like that to truly get that feedback?
So the main kind of heavy lift of our public engagement will be through our online tools, and then we will also be reaching out to community centers, finding ways to ensure that we've got information about the consultation in those physical places where where we'll find both customers and non-customers. Dan, you might want to speak a little bit more about some of the specifics there.
Yes, certainly. In our outreach, we understand we have changes proposed across the region, 85 changes, and vast areas of the Northeast sector and certainly other parts of the region. And so we really, to your point, want to find a way to reach customers where we can and be most effective with our outreach efforts to get the most feedback and the most meaningful feedback. Our experience has been that online and getting people reaching them online and including advertising on Facebook and Twitter and through our own website where we get tremendous amounts of customers coming to get information is how we traditionally get the most input. And it's also, we find people who have the most time flexibility so that you can read the information at your leisure, find out about the 1 or 2 changes that really affect you, because most people don't care about 85 changes, they care about 1 or 2, and then give that focused feedback to us, after your kids are in bed or on your way to work on the bus or on the train. And so that's what we find most effective. That being said, we know not everybody uses those media, so we're also trying to target other places where people are in person and reaching out to some of the community groups. And we've had some feedback from municipal staff here who kind of know best which community groups are the most effective to kind of get the word out so that, everybody, as reasonably as possible, can be informed, both our customers and those who aren't.
Okay, well, I'm really going to encourage you to do, if the electronic or the online piece is the way you want to get that feedback, that's great. I truly believe we've got to augment it with going to where the users are right now and let them know that you're seeking that message, okay? I follow TransLink on Twitter, but I scroll through it because I'm not a frequent user.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff, our call center is closed for the night or whatever, it's irrelevant to me. I scroll through it. So I think it's important that we get it out there. It does concern me with some of the stuff that we see. Again, I recognize it's movements of some services that become redundant with SkyTrain. But the picture of the 153 that was going up Thermal Drive, I think I've expressed this before. We've got 4 sections on Thermal Drive that exceed a 12% grade. Two of them exceed 15% grades. I've got some real concerns about that. And when we look and say, where's the demand, where's the need, we're putting 30,000, 35,000 people up in what we refer to as the Northeast and Burke Mountain, and we'd like them to be able to get to where the transit is. Currently, there's not a bus that goes up and down Thermal. The people on Thermal walk either to the top or to the bottom to get to their transit. I don't know that there's enough bodies on that street to justify the change versus where the lift might be in terms of usage in Burke Mountain. So I think that's an important piece to truly get that outreach. Some significant changes. I think your messaging and to get out to people and just say to them, you know, our politicians do it. They stand at the West Coast Express and hand out their flyer. Well, do that in the morning. Here's the route changes that are going to impact you in Coquitlam. Give us your thoughts. Things like that, we've got to get that. And then I look forward to our staff's comments with regards to their perspective on some of the things that we see here, because I think that will enable us to come up with a position.
Thanks, Councillor Marston. Mayor Stewart.
Almost exactly what I was going to say. I can't imagine. I can think of dozens of people maybe who might use a bus up Thermal. Maybe I'm exaggerating. Maybe it's not dozens, but it's lots. It's a few. Like 20. But it's not a bus load, and I'm not sure where. I realize that's intended to be the shortcut from Coquitlam Rec Center to a SkyTrain station, but it's not even the shortest distance to the closest SkyTrain station, I guess, which would be Coquitlam Central. And then when you get to the foot of Moray, you don't turn left to go to the SkyTrain station. You turn right, and then you go all the way through Port Moody Centre, and then you come back, and I guess you go over the Clark connector there for Rocky Point, and then circle around and come around the block. So you're probably at the foot of Moray 3 minutes by as the crow flies, and 12 minutes the way you've decided to go, in order to be the shortcut to something that there's already a bus that goes straight to Coquitlam Central, and I can't imagine anyone not just taking the bus down to Coquitlam Central. So I'm notwithstanding that, I can't even imagine the complaints we're going to get as a diesel tries to make it up in front of some of the houses on Thermal.
Or down.
Well, up's louder, but down's noisy too.
Down's more fun to live.
So, notwithstanding all of that, we don't have a bus in an entire corner of our community. We're building 30,000 homes for 30,000 people, and we don't have a bus yet. And so we're going to add buses to the spots where we. I think you're going to hear, and I agree with Councillor O'Neill's assessment that this is early, but I think you're going to hear from residents that say, hang on, what about these areas? TransLink cannot, in good public policy, ignore evolving demand as communities do what they've been asked to do, which is absorb population. If TransLink, the regional transportation authority, ignores that, they lose, I was going to say credibility. Oh, say credibility. Well, you'll lose the public will not support you, because you end up with an artificial barrier to doing what good public policy dictates you must do, which is provide expanded transit in those areas, or a revised transit in those areas, the 188B, where it's desperately needed. And it's desperately needed in the Northeast, and I recognize the limits that you've got when you come before us, but I'm not under those limits. So I'm going to express my intense frustration with one of the only public services that's outside of our control in a new neighborhood, where we're providing all of the services needed except transit and schools, and both of them are lagging.
Thank you, Mayor Stewart. And by Northeast, he means the Northeast of the Northeast. Okay. Thank you.
No, and this is arguably the Southwest. We call it. That's the original hill.
Councillor Wilson.
Referring to the far northeast again, I think it's just an amazing opportunity to shape habits, right? You know, we're trying to develop a transit-oriented development. We can't, and we can shape habits if we actually provide proper transit service there. And that's exactly what I believe everybody wants. And that was what the whole plebiscite was about, was, making this habitual for people. So we can definitely do that. The other way we can definitely shape habits is by having really good bike storage at the SkyTrain stations. And I know that's not your job. I know that's not what this is about. But our hub co-chair is in the back there, and he would be very mad at me if I didn't bring it up. And I think it's very important. It can really help the routes. It can help the routes be a lot more efficient if we have proper bike storage, because that's what we're really trying to encourage as well. So, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. And I've seen the hub co-chair when he's mad, and yes, we don't want to see that. Thank you. Councillor Zerillo.
Thank you so much for coming. I just wanted to expand on one of the points that the mayor put out, which is about reducing credibility. I only saw one map today, and it was that one that you showed with the bus going from Thermal to Inlet. As soon as you show that, you've lost me, because are you trying to feed their commercial zone? Are you really focused on people, or are you focused on commercial zones? I would suggest that you have some, not you personally, I would suggest TransLink has some conversations with staff and with real riders, because if that comes up in the public consultation, you lose your credibility immediately. So, and the other thing is, I know what happened with, it's easy to plan. It's easy to do logistic route planning with software these days, but we live on the side of a mountain, and the person that does the planning needs to know that there's small spaces and hard spaces to get up and down, and that it can't be done logistically through a piece of software. It just can't be done without eyes and feet on the ground. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Councillor Zerillo. Anybody else have any points? Thank you very much, Ms. Wickens and Mr. Freeman. Appreciate the presentation. And maybe we'll be seeing you again when it's time for us to give more detailed feedback. Or maybe it'll go to our staff. We'll have to work that out. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Madam Clerk.
Item 5 is our second delegation. I'd like to invite Mr. Todd Genisios, Director of the Coquitlam Public Library, and Mr. Jack Trumley, Chair of the Library Board, to please come forward for a presentation on the library's annual report and programming.
Thank you. And welcome, Mr. Genisios and Mr. Trumley. Good to see you all again. See you both again.
Thank you, sir. Co-chair. Your Worship, as well, and City Council, thank you for allowing us to make a presentation. We will be quick. The presentation Todd is going to be doing is in regard to partnering in the community this year. We've also passed around our annual report for 2014 as well, so hope you like it. If you have any questions, feel free to ask the questions as well. Just before Todd gets started, I want to just take a quick 30-second update on premises in Poirier. I was just over there recently as well, and the Nancy Bennett room is now getting as we speak, the team is putting in an LCD screen as well, an overhead projector to upgrade that Nancy Bennett room as well for people who want to do PowerPoint presentations. We've also improved the boardroom lighting in the Poirier room as well for more indirect and direct lighting in there as well to make it a little more palatable. We're also putting in, as we speak, the team is putting in a small computer lab. It's pretty similar to the one we had got in the City Center branch, only a little bit smaller. That's going in as well. We're putting in a public quiet space. We have some background space that's actually, if you go to Poirier, it's the windows that are facing the parking lot. There's some background space that wasn't well utilized, so we're opening it up to the public, and we're putting in a quiet space for a reading lounge as well in there. So we're doing a number of things. Also, the board is working currently with the planning committee, our planning committee, to put together the strategic plan for this year as well. And as you know, Tricelerate is having its formal opening on Thursday, 6 to 9 at the Innovation Hub. And again, we've also renovated that room as well and improved it to make it a little more appealing to spend some time in there. And without further ado, I'll allow Todd to continue on and talk about partnering in our community.
I don't have to do the 2015 report. Since my arrival in Coquitlam, most of the time I've come before City Council, we've always been talking about what we need. This is an opportunity for us to sort of tell you what we do for the community and the kinds of things that we use the resources you provide us in order to assist everyone in the community. So thanks for the opportunity to speak. The library board approved this annual report just a few weeks ago, and we are going to try and come before you essentially sometime around May or June each year. We're just taking some time to figure out our logistics around how to get it done and a little bit earlier in each year. So we just wanted to talk a few things about what we're trying to do for the community. The report itself outlines numbers and statistics. I'm not going to talk about our numbers and statistics. I'm going to talk about some of the things that we do. We love to serve the variety that is Coquitlam. Oh, there we go. The one on the right. There we go. We serve every facet of community society. Our programs and services are targeted to meet the needs of the broadest clientele. The library's mission is to connect Coquitlam's diverse community to creativity, discovery, and knowledge. Our programs, services, and collections are focused on meeting this mission. Through programs for people with challenges, providing these students with a place to explore and learn in a welcoming environment, to our Library Champions program, which educates new immigrants about what a library can do for them. The program started in 10 Metro Vancouver libraries that with Coquitlam having the largest number of volunteers actually turn out multiple times in a row to do this. And that program is now actually being expanded across the entire Metro Vancouver area through one of our partnerships called Interlink. We also target readers of all ages, from infants learning how to coordinate how their bodies move through song and movement, to summer reading clubs for adult and English as a second language learners. Mother Goose programs in partnership with Success to practice listening and speaking English for parents and their preschool children. And we do that in many, many languages. We had over 42,000 people attend a library program in 2014. The library also enjoyed celebrating culture and the variety that is Coquitlam through inviting groups, putting on displays, taking part in events all over the city, and assisting in learning English through practice sessions and citizenship classes. The library touches lives everywhere in our city, celebrating culture and diversity. The pictures shown are a sample of the displays and events that took place in the library. We have a lot of pictures that have setups, but very few that actually have people, because we always take them beforehand and then we're busy. So there's a few of the samples of ones that actually have people in them. What the library is known for is our children's programming and services, a core service that is in high demand in the library and at all of our partner locations. Pictured here are a partner program with Place Mayardville, where we do a French language program for children. The amazingly successful Reading Link Champions program, a partnership with the school districts and other area libraries. I think there's over 12 different schools that took part last year that celebrate reading. And for the most recent champions, which are actually pictured there, is a Coquitlam school, and they actually went all the way through without making a single error. And it actually went to a tie-break with another school where 2 classes went all the way through and they won on the tie-break with a perfect score. Working with the school district, Share, Success, and others, the library took part in Schools and Families Together, Ready, Set, Learn, Welcome to Kindergarten, Family Play and Learn, Healthy Kids Fair, New Beginnings, and many others. Our homework help programs use student volunteers trained by the library to assist other students. The programs include Parlez Nous Français, a program to assist children in using French, Homework Help, an oversubscribed program that assists students in any subject dropping in the library, and Reading Buddies with one-on-one reading skill development. The library has always been known for its books and ability to provide information. However, the biggest service is our programming. Programs meeting the needs of children from 0 to 18 are always oversubscribed and in high demand. In 2014, our Summer Reading Club had record numbers, and as many of you know, 2015, we had record numbers again. A sample of our adult programming is listed, many in partnership with local businesses, government, the school districts, and other agencies. We started tracking room bookings through our new online room booking software in March of 2014. Over the following 10 months, not-for-profits booked our meeting rooms 725 times, and businesses booked our rooms 125. Services like Licensing Pronunciator, an online language learning tool accessible to anyone in Coquitlam with a library card, an educational tool that allows English speakers to learn over 70 languages, and English as a second language students to practice their English. We are constantly seeking ways to improve our services and offerings to the public. Short and sweet. Thank you for giving the library a few minutes to share our 2014 successes. Our annual report has more detail on what we accomplished. To the mayor and councillors, a special thank you for attending our programs and events. It is appreciated by the library and most importantly our attendees. It really is appreciated. if you have any questions, we'd love to answer them.
Thank you very much. I don't have anybody on the list so far, but I have one question, and it's perhaps something the General Manager of Parks, Rec and Culture might want to comment as well. In our development of the new master plan for Parks, Rec and Culture, it called for some coordination, maybe greater level of coordination between the city's goals and what the library was doing. From your point of view, how has that been working? And then maybe we'll get if he wants to comment, the General Manager could comment as well. But
we were working, we've done many presentations, had many discussions regarding the Parks, Recreation, and Culture plans. We've had numerous meetings with other cultural organizations in preparation for it. We've had Parks, Recreation, and Culture attend those meetings and had conversations with them, with both board chairs and executive directors, as well as just the executive directors. So there's been a fair amount of back and forth. We haven't really seen sort of what's coming out of it just yet. We're looking forward to that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Aloueba?
Yes, I would concur. I think we're in a much better place than I think we were a couple of years ago. We coordinate ourselves better with the library and all of our service delivery groups. We are in a greater collaboration with the executive directors of those facilities, and I think we're communicating better, and we are trying to fold everyone into a coordinated sense of service delivery across our entire spectrum of services. Obviously, literacy remains a core service for the library, but there's many things they do in the programming side that we know is also happening in various forms in different target groups in Place Maillard and in our own facilities. So we're very careful to make sure that we're coordinating these. But we're in a much better place now. Both the Arts, Culture, and Heritage Strategic Plan and the Master Plan have really been important documents that have allowed us to begin the coordinated effort to ensure all of our services being delivered across all our partners. So we're in a much better place, and we're continuing to have discussions with the library on their programming.
Thank you very much.
Just to add that to Raul and Todd, we've decided from the cultural groups to get together on a regular basis and talk about our commonalities and what we can deal with. It's been, in the past, it's been about we're all sort of doing all our own thing. So now we've had opportunities already coordinated by some of the executive directors just to get together and talk about where our needs are. So if we can come with a single voice, it would be nice. I think from perspective of your jobs, it make it a lot easier if you can talk about from the culture groups as one voice as opposed to 5 or 6 or 7 different voices coming with their own plans. So that's what we've been working on, and I think it's for the most part it's been very positive with all the executive directors and the chairs. It's worked quite well.
Councillor Wilson.
A big part of the budget for last year included a whole bunch of technology improvements, and I'm just wondering if you could update us on how that's coming along.
Well, I'm pleased to say that we've actually replaced all of our desktops. So we are now fully on Windows 7, fully on Office 2010. We are very, very grateful to the city's IT department. They've saved us a significant amount of money in consultation fees. They're helping us. They helped us design the system that we're implementing. We purchased all the hardware, and the city's, some of the city IT department are helping us actually program it. It's not fully implemented. We're really starting to struggle now as some of our other systems are really starting to fail, but we hope to be fully implemented before the end of November. And then it'll be completely implemented. So it's great coming.
You said Windows 7 and Office 2000?
2010.
Okay.
Office 2000.
Essentially, we're getting
2010. No, it was 2010.
But believe it or not, some of our systems are literally 2000.
Yes.
So it's a little shocking.
We've pulled the tin cans out with the string. That's gone as of last year, so it's
Thank you very
working out
much.
really well.
Thank you, Mr. Tremblay and Mr. Ganisios. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And Madam Clerk.
Item 6 is a delegation. We had intended Mr. Mark Petty from the Coquitlam Express BCHL Junior Hockey Club to come and speak. Unfortunately, he's not here. So can I suggest we...
If I might, Mr. Petty has sent me a text. Unfortunately, an unexpected business arrangement presented itself, and he wasn't able to join us this afternoon. So he will reschedule.
Okay. We should probably take the opportunity to say that the home season opener is this weekend, is it not?
October the 3rd.
October the 3rd.
Saturday, October 3rd. The Express are off to a 500 start to their season. It's a better start than they had last year. October the 3rd is the season opener. I believe our chair, Councillor Terry O'Neill, will be singing the national anthem to kick off the season as well.
And I believe that Councillor Marsden will be doing the public address announcements.
I believe we'll have a forum because I am dropping the puck.
I can come and photograph the whole thing.
Some of us are feeling left out.
That sounds good.
Mr. Petty did send his regrets, and he will look to reschedule and
yeah, thank you very much. He probably did everything he wanted to do. Anyway, appreciate it.
So we'll move on to other business. The first other business item concerns Coronation Park and was raised by Councillor Zarilla.
Where's the whole team? Councillor Zarilla.
This is in regards to some of the recent media and also just some of the marketing that's out in relation to Coronation Park with SD43. I believe it was in the newspaper last week, an article about development on that site, and there was some indication that development had already been secured for that site, and there was actually some comments, I believe, on Tri-City News Facebook about people saying, well, it would have been nice if it had been this or that. And I think there may be some confusion in the community that this site has, or what goes on this site has already been determined. I've been approached myself by a developer asking me what is the city doing there. So I'd just like to get it out clearly for people where this is in relation to the city, the Coronation Park site.
Thank you, Councillor Zarilla. The General Manager of Planning and Development is about to take a seat here to tell us what the status is of that property. It's in Coquitlam, although can only be accessed through Port Moody at present.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon in Council. Yes, a really very timely question. So I'm glad it's coming forward this afternoon because we ourselves in Planning and Development are also fielding a number of calls and inquiries about the Coronation Park site, school site. It's an interesting area there. The school itself is a little over 8 acres, and I recall it was closed back 2007, 2008. So it's been surplus to the school district's needs as their determination. And it's actually the school, and there's 10 or 11 lots along Barnett Highway are technically in Port Moody or in Coquitlam. The bulk of the Coronation Park neighborhood is in Port Moody. So it's kind of an interesting enclave that's sort of split somewhat artificially by the municipal boundary. The school site, since it has been deemed surplus by the school district, they've been going through a process to identify land use options for the property, and they been a two-step process so far. There was a pre-brief that was circulated about a month ago, I think now, sort of to whet the appetite of the development community about the potential for the site, and that's been followed up with a fuller proposal call that went out, I think it was 2 weeks ago, and that's is generating a lot of curiosity out there. As I said, we were getting calls at the department. I've spoke to representatives from a number of development companies inquiring about the site, and I can well imagine residents in the area too are curious on what's going on there. The simple, direct answer right now is, at least from city staff's perspective, the official community plan designation is for the school site, P1, and that's the zoning as well. The residential lots just below the school site, sort of sandwiched between the school site and the Barnett Highway, they're single family. I think there's one duplex lot there as well. It's the lands that are around that are in Port Moody. There's some town housing to the north, and there's a single family neighborhood as you go to the west towards Ioko Road, and then there's the gas station down at the corner. It's in Port Moody, I think, that there's been a little bit more activity. There's a property agent has been assembling land there, and so I think they've got the neighborhood a little worked up. There's a number of property owners that have probably taken out options on their property. This has created a lot of interest over at the city of Port Moody about that, and my understanding is that Port Moody City Council has now asked their staff to come forward with a program to do a neighborhood plan for the Coronation Park area. as part of that city's official community plan. Given that, just across the street on the north side, across Guildford, there's Newport Village. Across Ihoko Road, there's Sutter Brook. The SkyTrain station is sort of kitty corner to the southwest. Clearly, you can see why the city of Port Moody is quite interested in that neighborhood. I was just thinking about it over the weekend, and you sort of just put in context, because Coronation Park is interesting on a number of counts, but in terms of size, it's a little bit larger than Coquitlam Center Mall of properties. So you look at the highway and Pine Tree, Johnston, maybe up to Glen. So it's a fairly tight area, and it's quite defined too, both by topography and major roads. And there's just one way in. You come up Balmoral Drive off of Guildford now. A lot of the services go that way. So, on one hand, it's unique, sort of like a little neighborhood enclave unto itself. Mind you, split by a municipal boundary. But it sits there, and obviously there's some potential in the future. But it really is an area that would call for, I think, a coordinated look at the future options for it. So we've been in preliminary informal discussions with Port Moody planning staff. We keep in touch about what's going on. And they've advised that they are going forward to their council shortly with that work program to do a neighborhood plan. We said, well, we would like to be plugged in and be able to input to that. So from our perspective, our work, I know I sound a little bit like a broken record here, but our city center area plan that's on the department's work program, that would be the process that would look at that. This is sort of the western fringe, if you will, of the city center. And that's something that's going to be a priority for our 2016 work program. However, if the city of Port Moody gets started with their neighborhood plan process, we'll talk with them. I would anticipate coming back to mayor and council saying, here's where we're at, here's what we're being asked to do, and check in with council at that time.
So if I could just add to that, from the development community's perspective, any interest in this property has to be viewed as with some speculation as to what council's ultimate decision will be, because council has not made any determinations on this. And we'll have to go through a whole process, as Jim has outlined. It would follow Port Moody's process, but it can't even be independent from that. And you will be given an opportunity to set what the priorities are. In discussions with the school district staff, both the mayor and myself were involved in some discussions, and we indicated that any reliance on any commentary or any commentary that city staff were in favor of their plans was premature, and because council had not weighed in on that. It's an area that one day will be an exciting area, but its time has not quite come yet. So the development community, there'll be some risk there, and they will have to put into their pro formas and their analysis of the value of the site that risk and that time delay.
Well, I appreciate those comments, because as a city councillor in Coquitlam, I don't believe there has been any decisions made. It hasn't been discussed, and I just want the public to know that this is will come for public hearing, I assume, if we have any changes that are requested, and that those decisions have not even been discussed at this table, never mind been decided on. So I just want to assure the public that we have open minds at this point. We're not involved in those marketing initiatives that came out with SD43, and that we're looking forward to hearing the input from the public.
And the timing of your decisions are well down the road.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I have a few speakers on the list. Councillor Reid, Mayor Stewart, I have a question, and Councillor Marsden.
My comments have been addressed by Mr. Stevlin. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reid. Mayor Stewart.
I just want to make it clear that I had spoken to the school board. I'd also heard some inquiries directly from folks who had taken out the package from the school board, who were inquiring about the site, and I have always made it clear that all those decisions aren't there yet. Representations of the school district notwithstanding. I have some concern about the way in which those representations might be received, and I want to make I'm glad the issue is on the table this afternoon, because there are no decisions yet. Sometimes when you drive through the neighborhood in this job and you see the marketing sign from a property owner that says townhouse potential, and you kind of chuckle and you say, yeah, in your dreams. You have to say, this is the representations of a landowner, and they need to be taken with a grain of salt. That the landowner is the school district needs to be contemplated, because it could leave some people to believe that it has tacit blessing of the city, and it doesn't. Nothing, I think the school district is right to pursue the highest and best use for the property, because they need to maximize the revenue that they can get from sale of the property. But it's our job to then manage what constitutes the best use for the city, for the residents of the city of Coquitlam, and that will likely be done in concert with the city of Port Moody, since so many of the residents of Port Moody will help guide that process, I suspect. So thank you for putting it on the table.
Thank you. My question has to do with Coquitlam's transit-oriented development strategy. Because the nearest station is in Port Moody, does this property therefore not fall within our TDS, or could it be considered part of our TDS as well? Was it contemplated to be part of our TDS, and could a prospective developer invoke the TDS in saying, well, we don't need to give all the background for the TDS here, but it was the speedy way to get development around the stations?
Direct answer, yes and no.
Did you say yes to him?
Yes, yes, Mr. Chair, in the TDS, and because we were consistent along the line. It's not, the world doesn't drop off there because the Ioka station's in Port Moody. So it was recognized in the TDS, being in the...
Was it in the shoulder area?
In the shoulder area. Okay. However, and I can't remember the precise wording, though, because there were some other factors, some other issues, other challenges along that stretch of the Barnett Highway, where we said, this really should await the area plan update. It calls for coordinated planning with our municipal neighbor, as compared to other TDS areas, certainly city center, but principally was Coquitlam, where it was set, ready to go. There wasn't those uncertainties, so it better presented itself in that setting.
Okay, got it. Good, thank you. Councillor Marsden.
Thank you. The chair has touched on a couple of pieces I want to bring, but the one pressing one to me, I see some similarities to other developments when we've got these community boundaries. We're right here. So Port Moody has started down the path with regards to their community planning. Are there synergies or economies of scale in which, given where it's located, that there's value in coordinating efforts that we can investigate? When you start to talk about notification of neighborhoods, et cetera, really don't want to see this as being another point where two neighbors that get along very well suddenly are at loggerheads. And, given that we're border Port Moody, Port Coquitlam, New Westminster, want to make sure that we can alleviate this as possible. So is there opportunity?
Through the chair, absolutely. I firmly believe there is an opportunity. In fact, if anything, there's a need and necessity to do that. Again, just to be clear, Port Moody staff, they're working on a report right now. It's going to their council sometime in October. So they haven't got the green light yet. But we have had preliminary discussions with them. And one of the reasons I describe the context and the character of that area, because it really does lend itself to a natural planning unit. And so just starting with access and transportation servicing, it really has to be looked at a coordinated fashion. So that does call for that cross-border interaction cooperation. I think as the city manager was alluding to, and the mayor as well, through their communications with Port Moody's mayor and city manager, it's in recognition that we are kind of in the shadow. The dominant setting is Port Moody City Center. So let's recognize that. And so if there's a planning process properly, it should get started on the Port Moody side. We can plug into it. I've indicated that to my counterpart in Port Moody. We'd like to work with them. But again, I want to hold back and come back to council, and because it's not all clear to me how we would plug into that process. And so I'd want to think that through and have some reports that come back to council to get the green light before I overcommit to something over there. But again, I think there's a necessity, and I think there's a real opportunity for us to work together cooperatively on something there.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think that.
Yeah, so just as a follow-up on that, by plugging into their process, it doesn't mean we'll start our process. But I think what Councillor Marsden was getting at earlier, though, was should we not look at trying to have our process move in sync with their process?
It very well in time may. How quickly they get up and running in Port Moody, and vis-a-vis how soon we can start our area plan process, which I'd like to do in 2016. Again, I think there's going to be discussions and some scoping of work through the balance of this year that, again, we will be reporting to council, and that I would see be more focused on their process. We can use that certainly later when we get the area plan project underway here.
But you're not planning to wait until they're all entirely finished, see what they've done, and then do something. So it's going to be trying to work in maybe a step behind or something.
Yeah,
or two.
They're independent processes in some respects because Port Moody's getting started with their, well, I believe they will, if their council approves it, with their neighborhood plan update there. We are planning to start the city center area plan in 2016.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk.
Actually, sorry. Similar on a similar point. I withdraw that. The example that we might want to look at is the Awney building at the corner of Westwood and Lincoln, where we're setting the tone for the neighborhood because of its proximity to the Lincoln station. We opted for high-rise in that area. And as a result, the next community over, which happens to be a border community, will now be, I guess, contemplating the future of its adjacencies in the context of what the community with the SkyTrain station, what it determined was the appropriate land use for the land next door. We're probably going to be in exactly the reverse position, or Port Coquitlam's position in this next one, letting Port Moody set the context for the neighborhood to some degree? Or at least that's one way that it might unfold.
Certainly, I think Port Moody taking the lead, again, given the proximity, the adjacency to their city center. But I don't think that means we give away everything. We want to look at that area and what its needs are overall. Road access, for example, should we continue to rely just on one road access through Balmoral to Guildford? Is there not a better opportunity for pedestrian access through that area? The servicing, should all the open space, green space be in Coquitlam? If there's going to be higher density development in Port Moody, shouldn't that also be providing amenities? So I think there's a number of things we need to think sort of across. Again, set aside the municipal boundary for a second, look at that area as a planning unit and try to come up with the best plan we can.
Thank you, Mayor Stewart. Thank you, Mr. McIntyre. Madam Clerk.
Our second other business item concerns a Coast Meridian road update and was raised by Councillor Marsden.
Councillor Marsden.
Thank you. I think we've seen we did receive an email earlier today with regards to some of what's going on up there, but hearing more and more concern as we come to completion of the Coast Meridian Road. We still have just north of David, just north of the entrance to the commercial area of the Shoppers Drug Mart, TD Bank. We've still got those 5 wonderful power poles or telephone poles, whatever wires might still be attached to them. And as we look to bring this to completion, was looking for an update on that. What might have caused the delay and how we can prevent it from recurring in other parts of the city as we start to see development continue.
And who do we have here?
Mark Saborniak, Manager of Design and Construction.
Thank you.
Through the chair, we've been coordinating with TELUS for the last year during our process. They're not going to be able to move those poles or Hydro's moved the poles or set up new poles. TELUS will not be able to relocate until the end of this month. They have some arrangements with their customers and blackout and that kind of thing, so they have to set that up. We have been talking to TELUS for the last year, so this is not something new. However, I would say that this is an improvement from the past. There's been times when council members probably remember where we had to wait considerably longer for the poles to be moved. So we are making improvements on the process. I think I mentioned in the email that's less than 1% of the asphalt that's being impacted. Once the poles are relocated, we'll be able to I don't think that's going to be a big deal. In the meantime, we have to we'll cone them, make sure they're coned off and that kind of thing. But it is important to get the paving done now when we have the weather, get the pavement markings in place, and to get the traffic signal in place. So, and then we'll relocate the poles.
Not unusual for TELUS.
So I think that's important because the comment that I've heard from more than one source of late, people see these as hydro poles. So to your point, this is TELUS wires on them. The comment that was made recently is we just had an incredible storm, and they were able to replace 250 hydro poles and put power back on for 710,000 people in 3 days. Yet we've been over a year waiting for these 5 to be repositioned. So it relates to a separate utility that's sharing it, is what we're hearing now. To your comment, it's better than it was. Better than it was, but I would still suggest highly unacceptable that we would have to be waiting this long. Is there some things we can do on our side that can improve things further as we move forward?
Through the chair, I mean, to a degree, they need to wait as well for us to do the work in the boulevard before they could move the poles. We will continue to communicate closely with TELUS, to send emails and telephone communication, and just make sure that they know where our schedule is and coordinate that with them.
Phone TELUS?
Phone and email, yes.
Thank you. So can you just repeat, maybe you missed it, what's our best guess for when those poles will be removed and the project completed? Do we have an estimate?
Yes. The poles should be relocated by the end of October. As far as the rest of the project, we're paving this week.
Yes.
We are pavement markings next week, traffic signal the week after, and then landscaping through the rest of the year, and should be, we'll be substantially complete the project by the end of the year.
Okay. And so when they come to finalize this work, the cost of the relocation is on them with regards to any concerns, or is it our dime with regards they finally got around to moving these and we're repaving again and patching? I appreciate it's a small section, but we're patching. Is that our dime, their dime?
That is the city's cost. Yeah. The relocation was on our initiative.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Seeing no other speakers and no other items. Second. Moved by Councillor Reid, second by Councillor Morrison. Motion to adjourn. Any discussion? No. All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous. So let's take about a 10-minute break to get to reorganize.